Alright, hello internet, and let's get started. So today I reviewed, or I watched a movie called, I'm going to butcher the title in German, but it is Ich möchte kein Mann sein. And this was from 1980, alright? So kind of one of the earliest movies that I've ever watched, probably, and so it was quite interesting. It's a silent movie. It had 3 parts to it, and so I watched it, of course, with all the writing in English because I don't speak German. So in the first part, it begins, or I believe it's called the first act, Act 1. You have what would seem to be a woman that has no parents. I first initially thought that the caretaker and the man who turns out to be her uncle were her parents, but I was mistaken about that. So they are in the house and she's outside and they're looking out at her, and she's playing a poker and smoking a cigarette. So obviously the parents, or what I thought were the parents, the caretaker and the uncle, are completely appalled by this. So they are like shouting at her from the window, calling her attention. The men leave. The caretaker goes down and she says, like, what is this about smoking? A lady shouldn't smoke, right? A lady shouldn't smoke. And then she picks up the cigarette herself and starts inhaling, and she doesn't stop. She does it again and again, and so there's something about that. And then so she goes inside. The girl, who I think her name is Ossie or something like that, a weird name. She goes inside and she starts to have a drink. Right, it's her uncle's kind of little bottle, and she starts drinking there. And then he comes in as well, and he's like, what are you doing? Kicks her out of the chair, and then he proceeds to have a drink himself. So cheers to that. And then he gets really giggly and drunk. So in both these instances where somebody is chastising her for doing something that's unladylike, they themselves go ahead and start doing it. Then she goes to the window, and there's like a ton of guys outside trying to serenade her, and it's actually a very nice scene where all the men with their canes try create a sort of street orchestra, and the canes become everything from a violin to like a flute and everything, and it's kind of funny. She throws sweets at them, and so this kind of flirtatiousness, this kind of openness to doing and trying things is pretty much what she's about. And then the uncle gets a letter, and he is he has to leave, right? So he leaves, and immediately when he leaves, she begins like sort of dancing wildly and doing all these crazy things, and the caretaker just can't get a hold of her, and she's just flowing around, and she has this kind of dress that opens up, and it has like this wild moment about her, right? It shows like a kind of crazy Dionysus like festival fervor and just craziness, and the uncle is just off. He thinks she's going to be miserable. Obviously she's having the time of her life. and then a new guardian comes in, and from my impression, this is supposed to be a handsome man, and he's quite older than her, just, for one. He doesn't look very German to me at all. For me, he looks kind of somebody who would be working in Castle Dracula. I don't, yeah. So, but she kind of has this, from the very start, I think, that has like a kind of relationship with him of like just one-upmanship of, oh, you're gonna try to, dominate me, but, sorry, I'm like shaking everything, but I'm gonna try to dominate you. So, they kind of have this like little power struggle. So he tries to even command her at one point. He just screams at her and gives her a command about how don't talk to me without standing up, and this is, and then curtsy lower and all that. And so you can tell that he's really trying, not trying, but he is in control, right? And she's trying to negotiate how much control he has or doesn't have over her. And I think in her flirtatious way, she accepts his power over her. I believe that then ends Act 1. Yeah. The end of Act 1 is her exclaiming out, "Why wasn't I born a boy?" Because she has to go to bed while the man just leaves out. She wanted to go out, obviously. And she's like, "Why wasn't I born a boy?" That's her exclamation in that moment. Then it's Act 2. And she goes out and she gets herself a kind of a suit outfit, so everything tailored to her, which is, nobody asked any questions about that, which is okay, fine. Then she, does the classic transformation into a man. She puts her hair just down. I'm not sure if it's a wig or not. But her hair obviously looks a lot shorter than it was before. So she starts getting ready to go out. And she thinks she's all powerful and amazing. And for some reason, she walks out of the house and the caretaker is there. And she meets the caretaker as a man. And the caretaker does not wonder how did this man get in here. But whatever. I mean, there's these movies. Nobody is going to, fault them for having plot holes or anything. I don't think that, it was really a concern. So she goes out, she starts smoking again, she takes the underground metro, and she starts seeing how hard a life as a man is, because she's forced to stand up. She gets her foot stepped on, and she gets thrown around a bit, and she sees how just nobody has pity for her because she's a man now, and that's the beginning. So it's harsh. It's harsh to be a man. She goes to the ballroom, and again, men are pushing her around because it's just another man, so nobody cares. Then as you go on and whatever, she's there in the ballroom, and a whole bunch of women try to get a dance with her, and then she also feels again kind of exasperation, like women are vicious, as it were, and so that's another sort of realization there that I think is quite interesting. The translation says these women folk are so inconsiderate, so I would say vicious. If it were kind of modernized now, it would definitely be something like vicious. The party looks great, actually. The scene about how everybody's there just having a party it's absolutely great. I would definitely want to go to something like that rather than clubs nowadays. It looks like a blast, honestly. So she actually meets the new tutor or caretaker or whatever, the handsome man. She meets him there. He's trying to talk with a girl, and then she tries to steal the girl away from him, and then he goes over there, and then they see that the woman that he was trying to get is with another man already, and then our protagonist says, well, that's how women are, so why don't we, become buddies, and they start drinking, and in a strange kind of turn of events, they start, they have moments where they kiss each other, and I don't know how it was back then, but it reads very strange for this kind of story, and for what I would think this kind of time period would feel comfortable with. Obviously, the audience knows that it's a woman, but it reads as a man, so it reads as two men, and fine, that's if that's what they want to do. But it does look very strange. That I didn't think something like that would happen. So that's the end of Act 2. Act 3 begins that they're still at the bar drinking, not in bar, the ballroom, right? But then she gets really drunk. She tries to go to the women's bathroom, and then she gets directed to the men's bathroom. Then I think she gets lost and goes whatever, because she gets really sick about all this drinking. They kiss, and then they are leaving, and they're getting their coats. Their coats get mixed up, which is a kind of lovely trope, as it were. I mean, this happens a lot in this kind of light-hearted, not morality tales, but this kind of like light-hearted life lessons of what you should or shouldn't do, and what if you do this happens, or these kind of little tales that are fun to kind of share with people, anecdotal tales or whatever. I'm not sure. I remember one of Cupid and Death, and they kind of mix up their arrows, I believe, and so you can imagine the mishap that happens then. So with switching their coats, when they take a little carriage, a horse-drawn carriage, to go home, because that's apparently how they did it back then, they are taken to the opposite addresses. So the caretaker gets taken to her place, and she gets taken to his place. There was a mix-up with that. Eventually, they figure it out. They switch, and at one point, the caretaker who believed then that our protagonist is the cousin. So as a male, it is the cousin of the female protagonist, the female version of the protagonist. So he's just like, oh, just don't let her know that we had our little adventure. And then he goes up to wake up the female protagonist, right? He doesn't know that they're the same person. And when he goes up there is that moment of reveal, because she's kind of half undressing the man side of her, or the man disguise, and he discovers, and they have kind of jolly little moment there where it's just hugs and kisses, and I believe they're gonna go off and be together now. But strangely enough, she looks rather young, and he looks like a very old vampiric man. So that would be the end of the story. I mean, so I forgot to mention as well with the part that her, she's dancing around and her dress is flowing everywhere. That when she's putting on the man clothes, that she finds it to be very difficult to put on and very restrictive. So especially the neck, and it feels like a kind of suffocating moment. And that's just one of the points where it's really saying, like, women. What I would take out of it is it's telling women, please enjoy being women, because if men could be women, they would too. I think it's just glorifying the position of being a woman at that time, where being a man was something that nobody, would care about you, nobody would have sympathy for you, or try to, care for your needs in a certain kind of way. That's what I get out of it. So the movie would be kind of telling women to, like, enjoy it, because everybody would love to be doing what you're capable of. So even though there is that play of, in the beginning, they are trying to control her and tell her what she can and can't do. It seems fine. I would say then that it would probably be that both sexes have their own kind of restrictions, I guess. So I guess it would be a lot more middle of the road than saying that one is better than the other. I would, yeah. So I literally just watched this now. So things are still working out in my mind, and I'm kind of really want this to be kind of first impressions, not like deep analysis. Maybe deep analysis in the future, but I don't often think that movies like this provide kind of fertile ground for deep analysis. You don't think they were made with that intent, so I think it would be kind of blasphemous to do that, even though a lot of people who critique things kind of go in that direction, right? Bring a Freudian analysis to something that was pre-Freud, that I would find that ridiculous. Or the same thing, I once saw, like, it was in my class actually, a feminist reading of Beowulf. There was no feminism back then. I don't see how a sort of ideology can be useful to decoding a text that's kind of the writers or the composers, as it were, never had those ideas running around. I mean, it's only, for me at least, in terms of criticism, I know this is really controversial. It was so when I was in university, but it's just, I think the tools that you use to decode something should be the tools that were used to create it. I don't see how it's useful to talk about postmodern theories for something that was birthed out of a different set of ideas. I think if you take a postmodern look at something now, that would be fine, because a conscious artist is creating using the ideas that permeate our time, and that's one of them. So a feminist reading now, that would be great, because that makes sense, because an artist is aware of those ideas, or should be. That's another thing, but I just find that it wouldn't be useful, so I don't want to have an in-depth look at that. I think it's a very superficial message. We can debate, what that superficial message is, but I would not waste my time, going deep into like some sort of, critical analysis of this. Alright, so cheers, internet, and I'll be back with another movie pretty soon. Alright, bye bye.